Hello, this is Professor Allison Liu with Carolina University, and this is Lecture H in Public Health 100 or PH 100. And this lecture is about lifespan nutrition, adolescent, adult, and older adult nutrition, and with a little bit of information about performance nutrition as well. So we're going to start off with a review of terms, and I'm just going to leave this here for a moment. This information was covered in our last lecture, but this is just a review of relevant terms. So, lifespan nutrition, adolescence. Puberty is an important milestone. Its onset is between 9 and 13 years of age. The definition is the beginning of adolescence and a bridge between childhood years and young adulthood. Please refer to a relevant chapter in our textbook, Chapter 13, which is linked here if needed. There are two aspects of puberty. First, we have a height increase, which females will typically gain 2 to 8 inches during this time, and males 4 to 12 inches. And there's also a weight increase. So there's some macronutrient needs that increase during this time. Girls should consume about 1,400 to 2,200 calories per day, and boys should consume 1,600 to 2,600 calories per day, and this varies based on activity level. More active individuals need more calories. As far as micronutrients are concerned, keys are getting enough vitamin D, vitamin K, and vitamin B12, also taking in enough calcium for adequate bone growth and prevention of osteoporosis, because we want to build the bones as strong as possible during these young years so that osteoporosis will be prevented in later years. Ensuring adequate iron, that's important, especially in this stage, because females need increased iron intake due to menstruation, and males need increased iron intake due to lean muscle mass development. So supplements are really just that, supplements. The micronutrients should come primarily from dietary choices, but supplements can have a role. And here you can see the micronutrient needs for adolescents listed. So in late adolescence, girls stop growing taller by about age 16, and boys stop growing taller by 18 to 20. In late adolescence especially, growing independent from family and parents is an important developmental stage, and making more and more of their own dietary choices is very important to this stage. Often, they are open to new foods and dietary choices during this time, whereas they weren't earlier in their life. Some skip the main meal and snack as an alternative. This is a common practice, which usually works okay nutritionally. They usually still get what they need, even if they're skipping a main meal because they snack. So poor dietary choices can be common in teenagers, very common. And there are also some eating problems that often occur in teenagers, including eating disorders, which sometimes develop during this time. Some teens also struggle with obesity that they developed in childhood or develop obesity as teenagers. Poor dietary choices can result in not getting the macronutrients and micronutrients they truly need. So factors related to childhood and adolescent obesity are as follows. This is an increasing problem, as we've mentioned a couple of times in this course. There are a number of reasons behind the problem, including larger portion sizes, limited access to nutrient-rich foods for some individuals, increased access to fast food and vending machines, lack of breastfeeding support, declining physical education programs in schools, insufficient physical activity and sedentary lifestyle, and media messages encouraging the consumption of unhealthy foods. So obesity's impact on children and teenagers is wide. Energy level can be decreased. Self-esteem may be impacted, it will be decreased. Activity level may be decreased. Development of hypertension, and increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease later in life. So dietary sugars are an important risk factor of child and adolescent obesity. So one intervention is decreasing sugar in the diets of youth. And here's a picture of several drink items and how much sugar is in those items. So here we have a Red Bull. There are the equivalent of 6 teaspoons of sugar in that Red Bull. The Coca-Cola, 9 teaspoons. Now, I don't know about you, but when you make a cup of coffee or tea, do you put 9 teaspoons of sugar in it? Probably not. So these drinks actually contain a lot more sugar than we would add to things that we would make. And it just goes to show, how much sugar is in some of the beverages that we consume. Another one is Powerade here, 7.5 teaspoons. And, a lot of us think of Powerade as somewhat healthy. Well, in terms of how much sugar it has, it's really not very healthy. So increasing activity levels can help to decrease obesity, and this is true in adolescence as well. So in adolescence, people are really forming their own identity, and they will start making their own food choices. Sometimes their food choices can be rather unhealthy ones, and teenagers tend to feel like they're a little bit invincible, meaning nothing will ever happen to them that is bad. Nothing will ever cause them to get sick. They'll essentially just kind of live forever, and they're not thinking about the future, right? And intellectually, they know to some degree that that's not true, but they just kind of act as though they don't have many concerns about their health sometimes. And that is true in their nutrition as well. Now, this is, a wide range of individuals. You can have some people that are very concerned about these things, but in general, adolescents tend to just not be very concerned sometimes, and they aren't really thinking about the consequences of their actions. Also, if children and adolescents do develop an eating disorder, it's important to make sure that they get help with that. Eating disorders can be very serious, and some of them can result in major health complications later in life. Some are even associated with death or major disability, so it's important to get help for eating disorders, including anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa, and making sure that individuals get help with that is an intervention that many of us can bring in our occupations, whether we're working with adolescents as teachers, coaches, and healthcare professions. Just all of us touch the lives of young people for the most part, and it's important that we always make sure that they know that there's help available should these things occur. Let's talk about young adulthood, and remember that some of the same issues with teenagers can happen in young adulthood too, including the development of obesity, eating disorders, and other issues, and also needing to build strong bones and whatnot. So young adulthood is considered between ages 19 and 30. Growth is completed at this point, and organ systems are fully developed. Usually this is the peak of health in the human lifespan, between 19 and 30. Healthy eating habits promote metabolic functioning, assist repair and regeneration, prevent the development of chronic conditions, and common goals for people in this age group are beginning a career, romantic partnership, some start families. These are typical. Everyone is a little different. Also, establishing ways of life, such as cooking, eating out, what are their habits with that, and home life. Much of our lifestyle impacts our nutrition, and that is certainly true of young adulthood also, and people are really starting to develop their own adult behaviors that they often continue for years and years. So the macronutrient needs are women need to consume 1,800 to 2,400 calories per day, and men 2,400 to 3,000 calories per day. Pregnancy and lactation increase needs, and high activity level also increases needs. So good eating tips for young adults are to replace proteins that are high in trans fats and saturated fats with ones that are lower in solid fats and calories. So we want to reduce the trans fats and saturated fats. Replace them with better ones. Those who are very athletic require extra sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Consider a multimineral or multivitamin, but always remember that food should be first. And what we mean by that is, again, what we're saying with supplements are just supplements, and most of our micronutrients need to come from food. So good nutrition in early adulthood can create a solid foundation for later adulthood, and it's important to establish those good habits. Some of the habits that are associated with health are cooking at home some of the time or most of the time, because people tend to eat healthier foods when they prepare them themselves than they could get at restaurants. Also, having some activity and making sure to look at just the general dietary health guidelines. Remember that the major killers of people later in adulthood are heart disease and stroke. So we always want to keep an eye to how to prevent those. Then we have middle adulthood. So in middle adulthood, the micronutrient needs are as follows, and it lists males and females. In middle adulthood, some middle-aged adults who did not have children as young adults have children. So when people have children, if they have children, is different. Some people do it when they're 20 or younger. Some people not until, say, 40 years old. So pregnancy and lactation changes the nutritional needs of women when it occurs. Some develop chronic diseases. This is true of both males and females, of course, and those can begin any time in life, but you see more of them start to develop in middle adulthood. So the first signs of aging start to appear, including wrinkles, changes in the digestive system, bone loss, and dropping estrogen levels in women, which is associated with bone loss, as we've discussed when we discussed osteoporosis. Men also have hormonal changes that we don't want to talk about quite as much as women, but they also have them. They have a decrease in their male hormones. Other signs of aging may begin, such as decreased endurance, wear and tear injuries and arthritis, loss of muscle tone, decreased vision. By a person's 40s, presbyopia, or less ability to see objects up close, often begins, and people will start to, if they wear glasses for nearsightedness, they'll take their glasses off to be able to read something better. Or that's because the eye is not as good at making the adjustments that it used to make. And so they'll, instead of being able to do that with their glasses on, they'll need to flip them off so they can see better. And then eventually they'll need reading glasses, and that's anyone will need reading glasses, even if they didn't need glasses for other things. They'll eventually need glasses around age 40, and that is, but it is a little later for some people, sometime in the 40s. And that's because they lose the ability to see objects up close. Wounds, injuries take longer to heal, and that's just a function of many of the components of aging, causing those wounds to heal slower. A middle-aged person can remain vital, healthy, and near his or her physical peak with proper diet and adequate exercise. Important reminders and health tips are to maintain a healthy body weight, to consume nutrient-dense foods, to drink alcohol moderately or not at all, to be a non-smoker, and to engage in moderate physical activity at least 150 minutes per week. And I'll also mention vaping here because vaping has become more and more popular. We don't really understand all the health consequences of vaping, but it is not recommended and is believed to be damaging. And that often is starting in, adolescence and young adulthood. So we don't want to do it then, and we don't want to do it through later adulthood either. Tips for women in menopause and perimenopause. So menopause is the time when menstrual periods cease. Perimenopause is all around that time. So it starts earlier a few years earlier at least than the actual cessation of periods. It's not an immediate process. It takes some time. Kind of like puberty takes time. You can think of it like that. You don't suddenly become an adult, right? Well, you don't suddenly stop having your periods or your childbearing years end. It takes several years for that to happen normally. So during perimenopause and menopause, consuming a variety of whole grains and other nutrient-dense foods can be very helpful. Maintaining a diet high in fiber, low in fat, and low in sodium. So constipation is common, so that high fiber can help with that. It also helps with decreased risk of heart disease. The low fat and the low salt diet also helps with the potential for heart disease. It helps to decrease that. Women are more like men in their risk of heart disease after menopause. So they want to be more cognizant of risk factors for heart disease than ever. Avoiding caffeine, spicy foods, and alcohol can help prevent hot flashes. Eating foods rich in calcium is important, or taking physician-prescribed calcium supplements and also vitamin D supplements can be helpful for preventing osteoporosis. And doing stretching exercises to improve balance and flexibility can reduce the risk of falls and fractures later in life. And now we're going to talk about older adulthood. So older adults, we can say ages 51 to the end of life. Sometimes we see this category as age 65 to the end of life. And health problems and challenges tend to increase over these years. Organ systems and functions decline, and absorption of vitamins and minerals declines. So older adults may pay less attention to their diet or eat less. Older adults' blood pressure tends to rise, and immune system has more difficulties fighting invaders. Neurological and psychological problems may develop more frequently, and all of these changes are associated with aging, and all of them can be impacted by nutritional deficiencies and nutrition status. So the energy requirements for people ages 51 and over are 1,600 to 2,200 calories per day for women and 2,000 to 2,800 calories a day for men, depending on activity level. Calcium will need 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day for both men and women to slow bone loss. Vitamin D, we need 10 to 15 micrograms a day for men and women, which is an increase. The rise in vitamin B6 recommendation to 1.7 milligrams for men and 1.5 milligrams for women, and this helps lower homocysteine levels, which is a risk for heart disease. Decreased stomach acid, which occurs with aging, can lead to the overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine, which can impact vitamin B12 absorption, and deficiencies may occur. Older adults should have 2.4 micrograms of vitamin B12 per day. Elderly women can be less concerned about iron intake since they no longer are having menstrual periods, and the recommendation decreases to 8 milligrams per day. So safety for older adults. With older adults, we want to try to decrease the risk of falls. Whether they have osteoporosis or not, falls can cause injuries. Certainly if they have osteoporosis, they're higher risk for fracture, but falls can cause all kinds of injuries. So we want to look for ways to decrease those falls. Things like throw rugs that people can slip on, cords that are across walkways, any kind of steps need a railing, adequate lighting. All of these things help to decrease falls. Most falls happen in the bathroom or the kitchen, and they can be associated with water on the floor. So we want to have ways to make sure that the water is not on the floor or does not stay on the floor. And then there can be other reasons that falls occur in those rooms, but people need to be especially careful in those rooms. Also, increased ability to call for help can be useful, such as a call system. There's several like Life Alert and things with a button that will call a 911 or a call center, and the person can say, I need help with thus and so, or I need you to call 911, and they'll do it for them. And then paying attention to avoiding infections is important. Whether that's respiratory illnesses or avoiding skin infections, because they can't fight off illness as well, it's especially important to try to prevent infections. During cold and flu season, they may need to take special precautions to try not to get colds or flus. We want to avoid medication errors during this time because medication errors are a major source of complications for people. So you can use pill boxes or more complicated pill boxes that even have some computerized varieties. But basically, you just want to decrease the chances that any mistakes will be made with the medicines, that they'll be taken twice, that they won't be taken at all. And there are hazards associated with hospitalization that a lot of people don't realize. Actually, when people are hospitalized, there's quite a lot of errors. Also, being in bed and not walking enough is very bad for elderly people. It's worse for them than anyone else because they get weaker faster. Hazards of living alone can be an issue at this age because more and more people are living alone, and it's important that they stay connected and avoid social isolation. Environmental safety concerns that impact older adults would be things like heat, cold, ice, transportation, hurricanes, and this affects older adults more. So when there's a hurricane and there's an evacuation, some of the older adults are going to be the ones that have the most difficulty leaving for many reasons. It can be about money, it can be about mobility, it can be about not wanting to leave pets, and to some degree this occurs with everyone, but older adults tend to be the least able to leave. Also, they are more likely to die if there's a heat wave and not adequate air conditioning. They're more likely to slip on ice. They're more likely to die of cold exposure. So these are all problems with older adults more than at earlier adult stages. So other problems of older adults that may impact nutrition are their dentition or dental care. Their teeth can be compromised, and that will impact their ability to eat. Reduced income usually occurs because they're not working full-time or not working at all during this stage, and that will impact their ability to buy food sometimes or to have adequate places to cook. Some older adults experience dysphagia, which is swallowing difficulties, and that can result in the need to change the diet. Some people are even put on like a thickened liquids diet, which isn't very pleasant sometimes, but it can help decrease their risk of, say, getting pneumonia because they're accidentally aspirating food or drink into their lungs. So, but swallowing difficulties can lead to a lot of problems and they have to be dealt with. So dysphagia is the medical name for that. Decreased senses, such as decreased smelling food and taste of food, impacts how people eat and how much they eat. The anorexia of aging means that some people, when they age, just aren't very hungry. And then losses of important others, such as a spouse, can occur, and that's a major life change whenever they lose someone, and those people often are support people. So when they are support people, they lose that support. Then there's also vision decline, and that can affect people's ability to eat well if they can't see or to cook. So contemporary concerns, more people live alone than ever before, and that impacts the support that they have. They don't have as much support a lot of times if they live alone. So next, let's talk about medication errors. So medication errors are a huge driver of problems for older people. They're on more medications, and they tend to have errors with those medications as a result. Ways to avoid that are to use pill boxes, to follow all pharmacy instructions very carefully, to have an updated list of medications to share with health providers at any time, and older people who have developed dementia, have manual dexterity problems, and other problems like that may need help with their medications. Maybe they need a family member or friend to fill their pill box for them. Maybe they need pill bottles that are easier to open because they have arthritis in their hands. These things may seem small, but for the older adult, they can prevent medication errors, and major, major health problems. Okay, so let's talk about supplements again. We've touched on it briefly. Supplements are regulated by the FDA as a food. They are not regulated as a drug. So this is a link to the dietary supplements page at the FDA. And here you can find some information and articles about all kinds of things that have to do with supplements, that have to do with honey-based products, how to protect your family from fraudulent flu products. So there's all kinds of info on here. Lots of warnings about potentially dangerous or fraudulent claimed cures for problems. All right, so let's look at a dietary supplement label because, we've looked at food labels on food products when we looked at the nutrition facts label, but this is a supplement facts label, so it's quite different. So the supplement facts is a name given to the nutrition information panel for dietary supplement products, and this one's from One A Day Multivitamins. The serving size is the manufacturer's suggested serving expressed in appropriate units for tablet, capsule, soft gel, etc. The servings per container tells the net content of the dietary supplement. The amount per serving heads the listing of the dietary ingredients in the supplement and the quantity of each. So it's going to tell you what is in this supplement, okay? And then the percent daily value tells what percentage of the recommended daily intake for each nutrient is contained in each serving. The DVs are for adults and children aged 4 and up unless otherwise indicated. All dietary ingredients contained in the supplement are identified by their common and usual name. A dietary ingredient can be a vitamin, a mineral, or other things like a botanical, an amino acid, or other dietary substance, as well as a concentrate, a metabolite, a constituent, an extract, or a combination of any of those above things. The amount of dietary ingredient of each serving is declared in metric units, milligram, microgram, or common units seen on there. It's usually milligrams. A symbol, such as an asterisk, placed under the percent daily value heading indicates that the daily value has not been established for that dietary ingredient, so be aware of that. So if you see that asterisk, then you'll know that we don't really know, but this is the information we have. A footnote contains explanations of symbols, such as an asterisk placed under the percent daily value heading, or any other symbols that are there. The list of all ingredients in the supplement, including an ingredient that is the source of a dietary ingredient, in decreasing order by weight. That's how they're listed, okay? The list of all ingredients is at that bottom part, and it's in order from the one that's the highest content. All right, so when you're looking at the dietary supplements, I think that it's important to make sure that you're not having things in there that are way, 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 way higher than the recommended amounts. I think that's always a red flag when they're just mega doses of anything. Is just a particularly concerning issue. Because those megadoses can become toxic in our bodies. Particularly anybody that has kidney or liver disease, would want to check with their doctor before they took any supplement. But most healthy people, if they're taking around the RDA or a little above the RDA, certainly they can take less than the RDA, like a little below the RDA. If they're doing that when they're taking a multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement, then, that is considered safer. When you're taking really huge doses way above the recommended amounts, then you can really get toxicity problems pretty easily. All right. So reading a supplement label. There is often a warning on these supplements that says these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So they're allowed to say, this is, useful for thus and so, but the statement does not mean that the FDA has evaluated that the product will do that. They're merely, honestly, I'm not really sure why they're even allowed to do that. I guess to kind of tell the public what this supplement's typically taken for, but it's not a studied drug. Like a drug is studied, and the FDA only approves it if it shows promise and effectiveness at treating a problem. Supplements aren't like that. Supplements are put out there and they don't have to prove that. They're regulated like a food. So this is some information about performance nutrition, which is covered in chapter 16 of the textbook if you're interested in that. So performance nutrition is really about like athletics and sports and how nutrition can impact that. So if you're interested in that topic, please review that information in chapter 16. I think you'll find it very interesting. All right, and that's it for this section. This one's a little bit shorter. So go ahead and make sure to answer your questions about adult nutritional health.